Welcome to Matrix Live. This is the Spaces special. We have a few people from Element with us today to talk about Spaces, a feature that got out of beta last week. I'd like to welcome, going clockwise from the top left, James, representing engineering management, Valère for product development, Danielle for product management, and Nad for design. Spaces have been in beta since May. I'm sure many in our audience have had a chance to play with them, but that doesn't mean that everyone watching this knows what they are. First of all, can someone give us a summary of what spaces are?
Yeah, sure. I can dive into this first one. At their core, they're basically just the ability to group rooms together. Think about things like Slack workspaces, Discord servers, so on and so forth. But just with our own kind of matrix flavor on them. They are effectively rooms with superpowers that can vouch for other rooms. And the really beautiful thing about this system is you can kind of do whatever you want with them. So you can make public spaces, which are really great for communities. You can make private spaces, which are really great for projects or teams or for companies. And you can also make personal spaces, which are really great to let you just organize your own worldview of Matrix into whatever groups that you like. And in a really high level, that's spaces pretty much.
You mentioned communities, which used to be a feature in Element, but spaces replace them now. Can you expand on that and tell us how they differ?
Yeah, Valère, are you a bit of
I can
context?
have a quick word on that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so basically, the communities is a feature that was requested since long. So I think back in 2017, we came with the first version of that. It was called communities or groups. And as you can see, a community, basically, it's a set of people together. And it's kind of hard to do that in a decentralized world, where people can join from multiple servers. So implementation-wise, it was looking more and more like rooms, basically. So we are duplicating things. So it looks like using Room for that was the best solution because we have already everything regarding power levels, adding people, managing people in several servers. And also communities was not really decentralized. So you could create a community on a server, and depending on the server admin, not everyone could do that. So yeah, we removed that. We are now using rooms, so their spaces are completely decentralized. Anyone can create some.
Right, and you get that decentralization and that application of is from the fact that there are rooms.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
They share a lot of in common.
Now, spaces are out of beta, but they are not brand new. The first announcement was back in May, and before that, they were even used for FOSDEM in February. For all that time, people have been experimenting with them. How long have you been working on them for?
So Valère and we've worked together here for about 2 years, 2.5 years maybe. I can't remember not talking about spaces over that entire time. Yeah, I mean, we've known that we've needed them for a really long while. We basically started on the spec really late last year, roughly Christmas time. And then we hacked together something as a bit of a proof of concept to support, to flesh out ideas in draft MSCs and things like that over last winter, actually. Sorry, so yeah, it would have been before Christmas, and then had something that we could, even use to run FOSDEM in January. Or in February, rather, sorry. So yeah, really broadly, formally last quarter, but we'd been navel-gazing about them for years, basically. End of last year.
Have they always been named spaces?
I'm not sure.
I can actually I can elaborate on this actually. So the legacy feature was called Communities because the sense was that they were communities of rooms. But the term didn't really work because if you wanted to organize some rooms for yourself, or if you join, say, a company or using it for a project, the term communities is a bit of a misnomer. When we started working on spaces, we considered calling them groups, but we didn't want any like negative baggage in terms of there used to be the old groups API on the Matrix side, and also people have their own preconceptions of what a group chat is from other platforms. You know, if you participate in group chats in WhatsApp and things like that. And so the name Spaces basically fell out of us talking about real world metaphors. And so we kind of said, hey, like a room exists in the real world. You have different rooms in your house. You use them for different things. You have chat rooms, which are just different places that you can have different conversations. And then we started to just think a little bit more abstractly about what kinds of places do you have different rooms in? Well, you might live in a house, and that's full of different rooms, and that's your home. And then you might go to an office, and that's full of lots of different rooms, and so on and so forth. And so we wanted to find a word that basically is represents that pretty much. And spaces were just this really nice generic way to describe different sets of rooms that could exist in different places, and that also might represent different parts of your life pretty much. You know, if you've got different spaces that you use for, say, if you're an open source developer and you contribute to some open source projects versus if you use them to organize conversations with friends and family and stuff like that. So that's kind of where the name came from.
So
just to elaborate a bit on the time frame, actually Matrix is also a protocol, so it's kind of a product. So we have to design the protocol. So it's the spec work. We have to work with the community to have some powerful, versatile protocol APIs, and then we have as element to find a way to create a product easy to use with that. So that's what we've tried to do with Nad since the beginning. The new thing with Spaces is that we were very fast to put it in users' hands. So basically, it was in beta. You could try it, and you've seen it building real time. So that was a bit new. So it's out of beta now, but it has really been in user hands since a long time.
even before the Spaces beta, Communities had been around for a while. They gave us a first version of the experience. How much did that help with the design of Spaces? I guess it set out goals you wanted to achieve?
Spaces are designed to do a lot more.
Well, sure, they come with many new features, but I suppose having that first incarnation gave a good idea in terms of what was missing, right?
I don't know if Nad, you want to have a word on that. I don't think we tried to convert the existing feature to the new thing. We're trying to think it from the.
Yeah, I think early conversations. Sorry, go ahead.
Go. There's just a delay, just that.
Sorry, yeah, I can feel it as well. But yeah, like really early on, I think we basically just clocked that we needed all of the stuff that rooms have. Like Valère was saying before, like we needed a member list, we needed power levels, and so on and so forth. And so I think we had a bit of a gut feeling that the most elegant solution was building on top of rooms. So that meant breaking changes from the legacy groups API. And we made that decision really early on when we were drafting MSCs for Spaces late last year. Actually, most of the conversation that we had around the legacy groups API wasn't about what were we learning from it. It was mostly about syntax. So one of the things is that, in Matrix, you've got the @ symbol for people, the hash for rooms, and then you used to have a plus for groups and communities. And we ended up losing that when we when we backed spaces with rooms because they use room addresses rather than space addresses or community addresses or whatever it would be. And that was a very deliberate trade-off that we acknowledged, and one that we, like, frankly, just needed to commit to. And it's something that we're still feeling out. We think people in general are comfortable with hashtags. You know, like 10 years ago, if you ask someone on the street what's a hashtag, they might look at you like really weirdly. But today, if you can say hashtag word colloquially, that can describe an address. Little bit of difficulty around then the colon for server bit still, but we unified those and inherited that from rooms. And most of the conversation we had with regards to the legacy groups API was, is that the right trade-off actually? And holistically on the protocol level, and if we think about our goals for Matrix more widely, is distinct syntax beneficial? Because you know at a glance whether you're looking at a space versus a room, and does it help being able to describe these things colloquially to people in the real world or not? Or is it just jargon? Like, is it just this syntax, and then are we setting expectations for people to need to learn what all these things mean? So that's where most of the conversation was. And we ended up arriving at saying, okay, people know what hashtags are, room addresses exist, we inherit the power of rooms with spaces, pretty much.
Since spaces were revealed early this year, a lot has happened. Many people have been busy working on them, many changes were made over that time. Surely there must be many new features that have landed since then. Can you tell us a bit about them?
I feel like any of us could answer this, and I've been talking a lot, so I'm gonna stay silent while someone else jumps in.
I feel like restricted spaces came along. Probably wasn't available at FOSDEM. Can you guys confirm?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the feature where if you're in a space and a room is marked as restricted, then you're able to join that without needing an invite, which is really great for if you're in a community that's affiliated with that space, then you can move around the rooms. Or if you're in, you're using it for work and you want to join different company spaces, different company rooms without needing an invite. We're using that a lot internally at Element. There's an Element space with a lot of subspaces, and we've gone through converting our rooms to that scheme, and it's just meant that people are kind of able to surf around and find out what's going on without having the blocker of needing an invite. There must have been other features that have come along since FOSDEM, right?
Yeah, I think subspaces were very bare bones.
Right.
FOSDEM. To be fair, they still are today in terms of their kind of best effort, and we're going to work on polishing them in the future.
So web was ahead in development compared to mobile at that time.
Right.
You had a lot of missing UX. Most of the things were configured via bots or scripts. So we kind of added all the UX for that.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that it's easier for us to talk about epics and larger chunks of work, but also we addressed. And when I say we, I mean we get the pleasure of talking today, but there was a group of 4 or 5 people working behind the scenes on this stuff day in, day out. Like Michael on the web, Nick, who's one of our designers, Stev and Jill on the iOS team, Valère and Android as well, and Patrick, who's a developer working on Synapse, who huge shout out to all of those people, where collectively, this group of people closed out 500 issues as well that we were tracking between then and now. And so it's 500 kind of smaller issues, but every single one was important. And so it's been a marathon of, just really addressing every single small thing we've needed to in order to have the confidence to bring them out of beta. And that's been a lot of the effort as well over the course of this year, pretty much from FOSDEM up until when we took the beta label off last month as well.
Yeah, there was the feature that allows you to browse a space directory, to explore a space, what rooms are in a space, to have like suggested rooms in the rooms that you think people should join first, During the development, we had auto-join rooms, meaning that every time you join a space, you were automatically joined to some rooms. So this got, we use now suggested instead. So yeah, a lot of things has been done in between.
I think we might, it's an open conversation, but we might also revisit auto-join rooms, possibly. So the reason why we pushed back on them is that there's a couple of abuse vectors where you could include malicious things mixed in with nice, desirable things, and things like that. And so we descoped that entire problem space for now. But auto-join rooms are really valid still. Like it's kind of annoying to join a space and just only have suggestions when, often you're joining a very trusted space. Like let's say you're joining a company and you trust the people that have set up that company. You should still be able to just auto-join rooms. I'm optimistic about the future of auto-join, but a few things we need to work through.
James mentioned the real-life example of spaces being used at Element. You have an internal one. Can you give us an idea of what it looks like? Like how many rooms are there in the space? How many subspaces? How deep do they go? How you use them?
Anyone know the number of rooms off the top of your head?
Sure.
Is anyone able to check quickly?
Just we could also in the ballpark, it doesn't have to be.
I think we've got about 150, maybe something like that. But with the caveat that probably not a surprise, but everybody that works on Matrix and Element loves rooms. So we have a lot of rooms in general.
Yeah, I'm not in all the rooms. I try to be only on the one I need to be. So, but that's one thing that since we have a space, I discovered tons of rooms that I was not aware of. And I say, oh, where is that? So yeah, even as a company, Spaces was very useful, to discover rooms and organized, of course. But yeah, it was really helpful for that. I joined a lot of more rooms since I have space. I think I'm in even more rooms than I was at the beginning.
Yeah, that's Element is a very sort of it's very dense information environment. There's a lot going on at Element. So yeah, the fact that we have a lot of rooms reflects that there's a lot going on. Just looking at the subspaces that I'm in, like we have a cross-functional subspace, which has then the cross-functional teams in that. So I'm in a Delight subspace, which is the team that is working on spaces, and then it has its own rooms, one specifically for spaces, one general sort of team room. And then I'm also in clients and servers subspace, and then the clients, we have web, Android, and iOS, and servers, we have like Synapse, Dendrite, Conduit, stuff like that. It's nice to see that hierarchy, and it also gives you a sense of like what the company's working on and interested in general.
I think the other thing is, so Danielle, you joined us, like a month ago, thereabouts. We no longer have to do this really annoying thing where we have to manually invite people to rooms, like drip feeding. As Valère said, you're discovering new rooms. It's really annoying to have to just have to do that every single time, where you want someone to have visibility on a topic, and maybe you're not an admin of that room. So previously you'd have to go to the room, find out who can invite people, etc., etc. And the whole thing was just really frustrating. And so removing that friction, I think, has been a huge, at least something that I've enjoyed from us testing spaces internally, and us being able to ship everything without the beta label, with the right room versions, with restricted join rule support, etc. Removing all that friction is great.
And everyone is not yet used to it. I still have people asking me to invite them to the room, and I said, just join it.
Well, it just got released, so people have to get used to it. One example of subspaces you gave me for Element was cross-functional. And you said there is a room dedicated to spaces in there. As you can see in this call, we have people from different teams who work together on this. What are the different roles that were involved?
Yeah, so earlier Dad gave a shout out to the people that were working on this. Valère is the Android developer. You mentioned Gilles, who worked on iOS, Patrick on Synapse, and Michael on web. So these people all worked in a single team, along with Nick, the designer, Nad himself, and myself, and then Danielle joining later on. And so they're putting these people all on the same team. They were able to just focus on this one big project and just have really good communications with each other. There's no sort of silos where you got to go talk to the backend team about something. You've got the person in the team to talk about, and that meant that we were able to deliver the project like pretty efficiently, and also just to make sure that the features are reasonably similar across the clients and we're all on the same page.
Anyone wants to add anything to that?
I think sometimes product management is a little bit mystical to people, and I think it doesn't help that different companies have different kind of definitions of them, and some product management at one place could be really different somewhere else, and so it could be interesting to talk about that a little bit in terms of what product management is here and kind of what it was within the context of Spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us right now, product management is balancing the needs of the user with the needs of the product and the needs of the team. We stretch in a lot of different environments for a lot of different types of user, and our product is very large and tries to satisfy all of those different requirements and needs. And then we have, as James mentioned, team members from Android and iOS and web and the back end that need to help and support those areas as well. So the role of product management right now has been helping to prioritize those activities to remove the amount of strain on each individual members, make sure that decisions are really clear and there's a lot of clarity around the direction that we're heading in, and really just enabling the team to focus. Spaces is such a large feature that being able to just be really narrow in our focus so that we can get delivery and get the thing in the hands of users is key and critical. So that's what we've been doing as product managers.
Good.
Yeah, I think sometimes so we don't have a problem building technology, like as a rule. And so actually sometimes constraints are really healthy. And so to have people like Danielle figuring out really healthy constraints, and often figuring out what not to do is more important, is the way to figure out what to do pretty much. And so having these guardrails and clear direction and clear vision on things is super critical. And I guess the other thing is it's really easy to build the wrong thing, and it's actually more expensive to build the wrong thing. So figuring out how to de-risk that in something as vast as Spaces has been a really big challenge basically over the entire project.
Spaces are not just an element feature, they are a matrix feature. And Matrix is an open standard that evolves. Part of that process is going through MSCs, as Nad mentioned earlier. In addition to those, a new room version was added to the spec. Can you explain why this was necessary?
I can have a word on that. So basically, when do we do room upgrades, new room version? It can happen when there is a security issue, so we have to do a new room version because the room won't work the same way, so we have to do a new version. And in this case, what we changed is that we added a new, what we call join rule. So basically, before rooms were public or private, you have two choices. So public, anyone can join with a link. And private, you have to get an invite to join the room. And as I've seen, and as James said, for Spaces, private Spaces, we wanted a way that members of a space could join some rooms. So it was a new join rule called restricted. It cannot just be added like that because servers that don't understand that join rule will fall back to something else, so it won't work. I think probably it would fall back to public. We don't want that. So that's why the new version was added. So now there's a new room version that support this new join rule, and you have to understand that it's in Matrix. It's a decentralized world. We have different servers, so some servers that are not up to date might not understand the new room version. So yeah, there's some constraints around that. When we introduce a new room version, we have to wait a bit. So that was a bit difficult to handle because we felt like it was we were not able to progress as fast as we want because we have to beforehand long before think about new room version and start doing things so that when we want to release the new version is propagated enough in the federation. So yeah, so that was like a interesting challenge. We figure out a lot of things regarding that, how to handle MSC room version and work in parallel.
If a room is a given version, for it to be a new version, you have to upgrade it. And this is something that has to be done manually by a room administrator. Those can be a bit disruptive. So what does the new version mean? Are upgrades required to be able to use spaces?
No. Most of the time you don't need to upgrade. You keep your room as they are. You add them to the space. But let's say that if you create now a room in a space, it will be automatically using the new version so that it can be restricted if you want. But if you have an old room and you are like migrating from no space to space, you might want to upgrade some rooms, but you want to be more than just invite only. So yeah, so you might need to do that, but you don't need to upgrade all of your rooms at all. I think we still have V1 rooms, and we are D9 now. So unless there is a security issue, you should upgrade, but for the feature, only if you need to. I mean, we designed the UX for that. And actually, if you want to switch to restricted, it will tell you, hey, you need to upgrade.
Okay, so it's even exposed in the element UI.
Yeah.
That's good.
For just to explain, upgrading is just basically you are creating a new room, and then we are adding a link at the end of the new one, leading you to a link at the end of the old one, leading you to the new one. We will improve the experience around that to make it more seamless.
Yeah, just to add to that, the room upgrades, the way that Element handles room upgrades today it can be way better. So like in an ideal world, room upgrades shouldn't, like as an end user, you shouldn't even really need to pay attention to them existing. They should almost happen in line the same way that, say, if you use WhatsApp and the person you're talking to gets a new phone, and you get this kind of inline bubble that just says like PS that this person's security code changed, something like that. They should be that informational and that seamless, and they shouldn't disrupt your communication. So that's where we'd love to get to with room upgrades. It's just on the list, and the list is a very long list.
Speaking of,
do not blindlessly upgrade your rooms. There is no need to do that.
Speaking of that long list, with Spaces out of beta, are we done? What's coming next?
Yeah, I can take that one. So Spaces, we're really happy and we're really proud of where it is today. That's why we've launched it. But there's absolutely things that we're continuing to work on and continuing to grow. So primarily working on bringing a lot of the functionality to the iOS app and improving things like performance. And then we have Subspaces is still in beta. So we're looking at bringing that out and the changes that need to happen there. And it was always, we're really keen on feedback. So if there's anything we're hearing from the community or anything suggested or any bugs that come up, then we'll be focusing on those as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
So just to add a little footnote to what Danielle said there, sure. A lot of the feedback we had in the beta was around the kind of the spatial model of the app itself, where, for example, Home, we had like some really passionate conversation, which was awesome on GitHub around people's expectations for Home, where If you come from a pre-space world, you're used to just everything being a room and you want to be able to browse all of your rooms. If you come from a platform like Slack or Discord, you're used to rooms belonging to different spaces in the first place, and therefore this idea of a chat room that doesn't belong to something in the first place is just lost on you. And these are kind of two fundamentally different expectations depending on your usage and your experience. And they're both completely valid experiences as well. We didn't manage to solve that 100%, so we ended up just throwing together a setting so you can choose between whichever behavior you want. But we think we can solve that really elegantly with some larger changes to the app, where we relay out things more holistically. We say, like, here's all of your global stuff, here's all of your per space stuff, here's all of your personal stuff, whatever. And all of that should be really intuitive and really coherent. And so we are trying to figure that out as well behind the scenes at the moment. And a bit of an open question around when we'll start to see the fruits of this, but the idea is that we'll try to solve this properly to serve us for the long term. And so watch this space, no pun intended, for those things as well as we learn more.
I bet that's a phrase that's been used a lot during this past year.
Yeah, between spaces being called spaces and element being called element, we find ourselves like double speaking a lot anytime we use a noun.
Awesome. Anything else anyone wants to add? Sounds like we're done. So thank you very much for your time and for your answers. And I'll see you around.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.